Video, we're going to cover the high paying in demand jobs based on LinkedIn statistics as of now. Let's get right to it, right? So what are the most in demand jobs for LinkedIn right now, right? Most of us, if you're watching this, you've probably got a LinkedIn profile. You're probably thinking, okay, well, what can I do to actually impress these recruiters on LinkedIn? Perhaps you're looking for what type of job is really the best choice, right? Because we're all in different positions, and I'm here to help everyone, regardless of your situation, to help your career progress, essentially, right? So let's look at some of the options we've got here on LinkedIn's latest report. Now, what LinkedIn do on a regular basis is they issue a report that talks about the top jobs, right? That are in demand, that are paying well. So let's see which options we have here. Now, on this LinkedIn talent blog, we can see that surprisingly, now when it comes to jobs with the fastest growing demand, these are the top 10 jobs with the fastest growing demand, right? So we've got deli clerk. Now that means the deli clerk, right? The deli clerk is a staff you see at the deli counter, right? Typically if you're at a grocery store, at Walmart, at Whole Foods, Morrison's, Tesco, wherever, there's someone there, right? Now, I think it's interesting this is number one, right? I wonder what was going on in previous months, but what you might have noticed recently with this system pushing for ESG and being vegan and eating plant-based foods and things like that, I think many people tried it and maybe it didn't work out so well. And there's also like a counter movement of people who are quote unquote carnivores, eating one meal a day with a lot of meat or cheese, which is healthy fat. So those type of things could be in higher demand, right? People realize these meat and fat, meat and cheese is highly nutritious food, right? And so it's interesting seeing that as number one. You think deli clerks would not be required given the last 4 years in particular of intense propaganda, if not 4 to 10 years of intense propaganda telling people not to eat deli foods, which would be meat and cheese and things like that. So it's interesting there's a pushback there, and that is in quite high demand. So I'd recommend you, if you're looking for a part-time job, a side gig, and maybe you're not focused on working online or having some kind of location-independent work, maybe you're a university student studying economics or finance, you want to make a bit of extra money at college, things like that, try becoming a deli clerk. I'm sure many of you out there are, if you're watching my content, I'm sure at least some of you are clued in terms of the opposing views to ESG and veganism and things like that, right? So if you're tuned to that, you should apply for some deli clerk jobs and maybe take some of your nutrition expertise and try and do that, make some money on the side. It's quite an easy job, right? You're just arranging meat, cutting up meat, having some specialist knowledge, which you probably have about different cuts of meat or cheese, things like that. So great option there. Now, I want to look through some of these key instances here, right? So we've got the sales manager, here. And we've also got a customer engineer, and we've got a marketing associate. Now, why do I want to focus on these three specifically right now? The point I'm trying to make here is that regardless of whether the economy is in a boom period, in a growth period, or where it is currently now, which is in a recession period, in a potentially an economic depression, depending how bad things get, there's always a demand for companies to have people to promote their products, right? So you need people who are going to be sales managers, marketing managers, customer engineers, because regardless of whether it's a recession or not, you need to sell your product to focus on your business growth. And they're typically the last type of jobs to go from a company, right? Because a company is always trying to build and grow. So it makes sense there's still a growing demand for them, even in a poor economic scenario, which it does look like the West is in currently, right? So that's a good consideration for you to make, right? If you have good sales skills, good marketing skills in one industry, maybe you're a good car salesman, there's a low demand for cars, for example, then you could always switch those sales and marketing skills to another part of the industry itself, maybe going from selling traditional cars to electric cars, or move from that to franchise sales of a fleet of cars to major companies. Or you can even make a shift further to that sales skills, those sales and marketing skills you have in the car industry, over to another industry, software sales. You learn a bit about software, but mainly those sales skills and those marketing skills are what are going to carry over regardless what industry you're in. So I'd recommend you consider that option 2, option 6, option 9, fast growing industries in sales and marketing, fast growing jobs in sales and marketing. Think about that. Then the other jobs, as you can probably see here, right? So Next up, we have barista. We have an optometrist, which is like an optician's, an eye expert. And then what you have a hospice nurse. And those are the other three I wanted to focus on, right? So these are quite good to point out because we're all busy in our day-to-day life. We don't think, what is the growing jobs in demand, right? Because we're just consumed with our day-to-day life. It makes sense for there to be a growing demand for baristas or coffee shop workers because more people are working in the office compared to working from home in previous years. Also, you have a bit of a trend in terms of, people drinking iced lattes, people drinking more coffee than tea, people needing coffee to get through the day, maybe several times a day they go to their favorite coffee shop, people needing a break from this kind of crazy reality you're in the West, to drink coffee as maybe a coping mechanism in a sense, hopefully not a caffeine addiction. And then also optometrists, right? Or opticians, which is number 4, right? Now, more people are on screens, on their phone, on their laptops. They need glasses, they need laser eye surgery, they need some contact lenses. So it's no surprise there is a demand for people and those eye-related products and those eye-related specialists. And then number 7, hospice nurse, right? We do have an aging population in the West thanks to liberalism and feminism and, all types of bizarre social security systems and government benefits that really disadvantage people from having kids, particularly if they're skilled. People are burdened with high tax, so they're not really buying houses and having kids and expertise. Next up, we have most in-demand jobs, right, in the last quarter. So what do we have here? We have salespersons, again, so if you want to work in sales, it's good. Retail salesperson, also high demand there. And also we have sales manager again. Customer service representative has actually gone down slightly. So in general, okay, like I say, if you have sales skills, you're always in a sense going to be in demand. There might be high periods and low periods, but typically you always need salespeople to sell the product for the company, right? So that's always a good option for you to consider. Now, there is a slight dip, as you can see here, in the customer service representatives, right? It's got a -1 here. Now, we could say some of that could be because there's more automated customer service, whether it's on websites, whether it's in the stores with retail outlets having automated checkouts, so maybe there's a bit of a dip there. But overall, sales is always a good career for you to choose, whether it's in finance or not. Now we have software engineers. Again, if you're an expert in software, you're an expert in certain other topics, full stack engineers, those will always be in demand. Data engineers, of course. So if you have tech skills, I know there's overall tech layoffs and things like that, but it's still a highly skilled area to be in, right? Because if you can code one language, you can easily learn to code other languages. You become a full stack, you understand full stack developer, you understand all the different coding languages, you can find a job within the tech industry and have that flexibility maybe to work from home, sometimes working in the office. You could save money that way. You could also become a freelance web developer. There's so many options there, and you really are kind of like a self-made businessman or woman if you do have those skills and you can market them effectively, and you might not have to work for anyone and you'll be in high demand because people want those tech skills. Now, other options here, just to focus on that lastly, is the project managers and the business analysts. Now, the term business analyst sounds a bit fancy. Loads of people want to work in business. They want to do a business degree. They want to do business studies. And a lot of these kind of degrees are maybe not taken so seriously. Some of the work, like a business analyst, will be like data entry, will be like some basic entry-level jobs. Typically, that's what it means. So, there's always going to be demand for junior staff to do a lot of work and maybe do the work of more senior people. So you could see maybe business vice presidents, business directors being fired because they're high cost to a company during a recession. But in return, they will be hiring more junior staff business analysts to do the work for cheap because there'll be more younger junior staff to pick up the slack for the people they fired. And then project managers is quite interesting. It's something I'm kind of potentially looking into. It's a good skill set to develop to manage projects in your particular industry niche or in different niches. You always need some people in management to manage big projects. And as work, you can see over time in this kind of gig economy we're living in, a lack of job stability, a lack of commitment from companies to hire people over the long term. They might be a demand in a sense for hiring people on a part-time or a contract basis to be project managers, because companies maybe want to hire you for 6 months to manage a new project, and then they'll fire you effectively or let you go, and you can make significant amounts of money as a contract worker or a freelancer in project management. It could vary depending on the industry, depending whether it's a construction project manager or finance project manager or tech project manager. Slightly different requirements there, different levels of complexity, but it's something to consider. I think everyone should think about, look at this list and think about, where do you sit there? And do you have something similar to what's most in demand? Because there are layoffs across tech, finance, many other industries, I'm sure, coming in the retail sector. Companies just going under. They can't keep up with this recession and the inflation and the lack of demand, particularly for consumer products. So really look at this list and think, where do you fit in there? What if you had to pivot to an in-demand job because you got laid off tomorrow, and they gave you some severance pay, some layoff money for about 3 to 6 months? What would you do, right? If you're working in trading, right, you have a finance job in trading, could you make the pivot to sales instead of trading, right? Could you, if you're working in the tech industry and maybe you're doing product management in tech, could you make the pivot to become a software engineer? Are you learning coding on the side so you can make that pivot to something that is in demand in your industry? If you're working maybe in retail sector, could you make the pivot to a different type of customer service role? Could you make the pivot from salesperson in one industry that might be in decline, like traditional cars? Could you make the pivot from that to a salesperson in electric cars or another particular niche? Maybe solar panels is on high demand in the US and to a certain extent in the UK. Could you make those type of pivots in your career? Because no one should think about right now that I've got one job, it's going to last forever, everything's going to be fine. I think you have to be realistic in terms of how unstable the job market is, how unstable the West is in terms of the culture, the economy, the society. You never know, you might have to pivot. You might have to, there's that famous meme where someone's driving a car and it swerves left because a change of circumstances, a change of view, a change of demand. So consider yourself, you might be in a specific lane. If you need to shift lanes in your career, how easily can you do it? I myself am a career coach who's worked in finance for over 10 years in Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and HSBC, and some of those were quite quick pivots impacted by the Brexit vote, which was part of the reason why I left Goldman Sachs to move to Morgan Stanley. My move from HSBC to Goldman Sachs was because I wanted to try something slightly different and I wanted a more high profile role. So all these type of things you got to think about is, right, if you have to make changes, how are you going to do it effectively for your job stability, to increase your pay and to plan for the long-term future of your life and look out for your best interest in this very volatile job market. So there you have it, right? So perfect solution for you to be able to make as much money as possible based on your LinkedIn profile. I'm someone who's a career coach. I help people write their CVs, write their LinkedIn profiles, prepare for interviews, get the job they want, and build a lifestyle based around freedom, based around achieving their goals and not being a corporate slave, as it were. So if you're interested in that, the link to speak with me is in the description, free ebook in the description too, 2 recommended videos on the screen right now, and I'll see you next time.